It is 7:04 on February 3rd, 2026, and we bring to order the meeting of the Sherborn Capital Budget Committee. We have a few participants, and as we go along, there might be some people joining at different points in time, and that might be important for different topics that we might cover on today's agenda. So I do know that based upon some people's appearances, we might kind of jump to a particular topic matter on our agenda in order to facilitate their appearance and make sure that everyone's time is efficiently spent here. So as we begin, I think perhaps what we do is we look at these minutes. And I'm not seeing anything to change from what I had seen beforehand. One thing of note, the others, I think oftentimes there's actually more people on here than.
I try and pick up everybody that shows up, but like for instance, right now we don't have anybody showing.
Yeah, so.
Can't see anybody actually.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I can easily change that. Let me see the view here. Multi-speaker. No. Let me try gallery. Well, you see Jeremy. So maybe Jeremy's the only one who has his camera on.
Yeah,
you.
there's a setting under view, and you want to turn on hide or turn off hide non-video participants.
Show non-video participants.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice.
For some reason, that's the default setting, and we can't change it. So it's something I have to do every time. But that'll give you,
unfortunately,
on the screen, will show you everybody that's in the meeting.
Unfortunately, this just makes you smaller, Jeremy, than otherwise you should be and filling half the screen. So we'll, oh, there we go. If we just switch it to a thumbnail, you are the entire screen. So
We can switch it back to everybody, right? Oh,
no, they're
I
there.
see them.
They just aren't
Okay.
depicted. So we'll play with that. Get used to the settings during the course of the meeting if you don't want to look at yourself the whole time. But look, I don't have a memory specifically of other people or who was there at any of these particular meetings. So I'm not going to move to amend any of these. I just sort of note for the record that I do think that there were other people at different points of those meetings that were there popping in and out. But that's okay. I don't think we need to note every single person who was in the audience.
Okay.
You wouldn't do that if they were here in person, would you?
Oh, I'd include them if they were here in person, yeah.
Unless they identify themselves. All right, I'm just saying in general, but that's not
Oh, in
necessarily
general,
need it for the minutes.
Yeah, if they were, you don't have to.
Mhm.
If you should, if they speak.
Of course. Yeah, if
But,
they're speaking,
yeah.
of course. Yeah.
But I usually, if I know who they are and they're here, I'll put them,
Mhm.
I'll note them.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes I don't get everybody who's up there and out on the screen.
Yeah, so for example, on January 13th, you do have as a speaker clause under IT. You do not have him as sort of an other attendee.
Got it.
I don't think you need to. I don't
Oh,
think you
okay.
need to amend the minutes. I think the speakers are what's important in terms of reflecting in the minutes. But thank you so much for putting all these together.
I have to say, I think what Nora did
Mhm.
with your app on the summary, what the recording, I thought that was good. I don't know whether it accurately recorded what happened at the meeting because I wasn't there, but I thought it was plain English, clear, grammatical.
And that also could have, well, if that was the plot note that I did actually after the fact, because sometimes I'll have to put it on and have it listen to the YouTube video, but Jeremy had mentioned on something with advisory that Heidi Doyle, so the one that we're paying for the town.
Mhm.
It's only so many minutes per month, so it's not like you can do all of them, but
Yeah.
from what I understand. But that was actually very excellent too.
Yeah, oh, good.
Jeremy, I don't know if you can comment on that just for the sake of letting Corey know. That was good.
I'm sorry, I missed the
Those
question.
minutes, the AI recordings that you'll sometimes have.
Yeah.
That, for example, I had Heidi help me with the advisory one. That was great.
hmm
With using the AI and getting that over to me.
Yeah, I mean, so Zoom has some AI features that we haven't found to be super yet by way of making meeting minutes, but the Planning Board and Conservation Commission have been using another software product, creating meeting minutes in draft form from AI, and it's been working really well. So
Yeah.
what that does, it takes the Zoom recording, you upload the Zoom recording, you upload the meeting agenda, and then the first time that you do a meeting for a committee, it starts to learn people's voices, which is really interesting. And so you have to do a little setup. But after the first, it actually understands people's voices and can identify who's speaking just based on the sound. So it's pretty cool. So
Okay.
So,
we're trying it.
so two things I do want to change in the December 17th proposed meeting minutes. Laura, I think it is HOWENSTINE, and that looks like it might have been autocorrected in January 13th as well. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if I have it in my notes. But back in December 9th, there's a reference to the Chevy Tahoe. It says PPV. Is that, I'm trying to remember what PPV is, or if that's a incorrect acronym.
Police pursuit vehicle.
Police pursuit vehicle.
Okay. All right. So PPV is correct. Thank you, Sean, I think.
Yes.
For the record.
It was, sorry.
All right. So other than that, I think I'm good with the minutes.
Should I make a motion to
Sure.
approve the minutes for December 9th, December 17th, 2025, and January 13th, 2026? To approve the minutes as submitted.
As amended.
As amended with Laura's correct spelling for last name.
I second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So 3-0 in favor of approving the meeting minutes. Pam, I see that you're on. I'm not sure if you're able to share your screen, if you're any place where you could do that. But is it possible to share the spreadsheets that you had sent to me previously, so that we can talk about them and others can see them as we discuss them?
If you have them, I'm not able to do that.
Okay. So I have them what I could send via email to anyone. I just don't have a laptop in front of me,
Oh,
which
okay.
it's fine for us to talk about it. I just figured that to the extent it could be shared on the screen.
Yeah, no, I'm not at the office. I'm at home.
Sure. And I don't know, if Jeremy, you have,
Peter, if you want to send them to me, I can try my email. I can try and share them.
okay. Let me do that.
Is it this one here? That one?
No, that's Sean, Colleen. So let me go to my sent box. Apologies.
Right here,
And-
this one here.
Yes, I mean, are you logged on?
I can send it to Jeannie right now.
Okay, perfect.
Sent.
All right, so what I want to talk about briefly was what we have colloquially referred to as the debt mountain in the past, and sort of how those numbers are generated and how they come to be. And so what I think is important is to reflect upon sort of the debt burden the town has and how that impacts, capital planning going forward, as well as just how it impacts the abilities of the town to basically raise money and pay for the debt service. So there's a couple of things in these spreadsheets that I think are noteworthy. And Pam, if there's anything I say that's incorrect, please correct me, or Jeremy, or anybody else who's more knowledgeable than I am about sort of the debt load and debt service. But essentially, in the spreadsheets, there's a couple of spreadsheets. One which actually in the title talks about long-term debt, and also has this graph that we refer to sort of as the debt mountain. And to the extent that I'm going to try to talk to my committee members about this, what you'll see is that, normally over time, the debt gets bonded into long-term debt. And so as the town is paying off, it's paying off both principal and interest on the debt. And because the bonds have varying durations, but they do ultimately get paid off, the graph that you see shows that ultimately the debt burden of the town in gray for existing debt goes down. But if you have all the capital planning and you're going to be continuing to use the capital markets, or sorry, the bond and debt to finance your capital projects, then you're going to be continually adding on to the debt burden for the town. Now, if you're able to hopefully plan, you can do it in a way which is in at least real, maybe not nominal terms, is sort of relatively flat, right? So that you're not always just piling on, so it goes up in sort of in an infinite fashion. There will be times there'll be spikes because you're going to encounter situations in which maybe it's a new school, it's a certain building, that there will be some spikes in sort of the debt load. But overall, you want to try to smooth it out. And in real terms, you want to make sure that it is not escalating too greatly, because that will then increase the amount of debt service that the town has to pay. And so when it comes to a debt service, at least in the spreadsheets, you can kind of see in it perhaps is you probably want to go on to the other tab. Sorry, we're just switching to the first tab in the debt mountain. And Jeannie, if you have these coming through in your email at any time. All right, she's starting to share this. Perfect. And that's exactly the tab that I was referring to. The tab
DSRMY.
RNY. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that, that will show what the debt service is by year. And it shows what it has been in the last 5 years, sort of broken out at the bottom, which will have the principal and interest. And so, Jeannie, if you're scrolling down, you want to scroll down to like 236 row.
Red.
Yeah, like row 236 or something like that, below the red back cell background. Maybe it's frozen. But in any case, for example, in 2023, our fiscal year, you have the principal of 1.3 million and the interest of 356,000 approximately. So for a total of about 1.68 or so million dollars is the debt service. And what's helpful to understand is just sort of what that is as a percentage of the operating budget. Because again, the operating budget goes up over time, typically due to at least inflation and sometimes increased spending. And so it's oftentimes more relative to like how much money the town is sort of raising in general and how much is it using to pay for debt service. The smaller the amount of debt service, the less either the town has to sort of raise or just as it has more money to spend on sort of operations as opposed to sort of capital projects. So 2025, the number is approximately 1.687 million. And so that is very similar to fiscal year 2023. And so, then you start looking at, well, what are we in fiscal year 2026? That's the current fiscal year that we're ongoing. And that's approximately over $2 million for debt service. And then if you start factoring what is the capital plan, what are all these sort of capital budgets that all the budget makers are putting in, you see that it's going up, right? And so the numbers in column, I think this might be M, if I'm remembering correctly, for 2027 is again north of 2 million and is sort of growing. The numbers after that, there's less fidelity with respect to the proposed capital projects. So I don't think that those numbers perhaps reflect what will be the case when we get there. But at least it shows sort of where we would be in 2026, 2027. And to the extent that there's a great deal of capital expenditures and appropriations, then that number will continue to grow as we go. So thank you very much, Jeannie, for pulling it up. That's exactly the numbers that we're looking at there on the screen. Now, if we just go to the other tab in this Excel spreadsheet, which is the one that says Debt Mountain on it, just for those who are following along at home, you can see the graph. Jeannie, if you just kind of scroll up a little bit and over to your right, you'll see that that's the graph. I'm sorry, the other direction.
The other right.
So there's the mountain itself. And so again, gray is sort of existing long-term debt. Blue would be the debt load if we start, piling on too much additional capital projects. And the light blue is sort of the ones that have been appropriated but haven't been borrowed yet. So for example, the ambulance, that was a project that was appropriated at the last town meeting. However, because the order cycle is so long on the ambulance, that won't be actually sort of invoiced until it's delivered in a year or two at this point. And then at that point, it'll be borrowed. And that's why the light blue is kind of doesn't start in fiscal year 26, even though that was when it was appropriated. There's a bit of a delay. But one of the things I think is really important to note, and Jeannie, if you go back and scroll down a little bit and over to the left, you'll see that light blue text is down there, I think. Yeah, just a little bit lower. And so if you look at those numbers, it has the ambulance. And then you notice, at least the way that this is, I think it's in fiscal year 28 and it incepts or so with what is approximately $100,000 and then 97,000 and 95 and 90,000. I'm not exactly sure why it's the debt load is trying to be put into only what I think is 5 years in terms of a 5-year bond and not a longer bond. But to the extent you sum all of those rows up, my recollection is that even though the amount that was appropriated is $415,000, it's probably total principal and interest on that debt is going to be $460 something thousand. So even on that $415,000 appropriation, you're going to be suffering sort of $50,000 in interest payments over the life of the bonded note or the loan for that, which harkens back to thinking about things that are recurring capital expenses that we see almost every year. So, for example, the roadway management. I know I've been harping on this for a little while now, but we're expending $300,000, $400,000 a year in capital costs, which essentially means that, yes, we do spread it out over time, but we're incurring the, what, 30, 40, $50,000 of interest payments on that, even though that is something that we're doing every single year. So are we amortizing it over time? Not really, because the next year we're also doing roadway management, and the next year and the next year. So essentially all we're doing is we're adding debt service onto paying to pay for our roads, where if we actually did it out of capital, out of operating, we wouldn't be adding all that debt service costs onto it. Anyways, so one of the things that's helpful, as I talked about in terms of how much the capital is as a percentage of the operating budget, I have read and heard different things in terms of a rule of thumb about where it should be. Now there is an actual sort of regulatory, cap, but that is like 5 to 10%, and that's of not the operating budget, but sort of value of the town. But in terms of the operating total expenditures, the rule of thumb that I've seen, and I think Jeremy spoke to this perhaps, was around 5% or so is sort of best practices, 5 or lower. And so Jeannie, if you could open up the second spreadsheet that was sent. This one actually, Pam has created the spreadsheet. I believe, Pam, I can attribute this to you. If it's somebody else in your office or your staff that should get credit, please let me know. But otherwise, what you have here is a tabulation, sort of adding up all the principal and interest payments for the last. So you have fiscal year 23, fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25. And then below that, you have the total operating budget as it has been, what it is, at least budgeted for fiscal year 26. And then and I don't know how old, Pam, that number is, the 38 million. If it's, something that's in flux, or if it's, as of last week, so to speak, or if it was in the fall. But what you have is you have the debt as a percentage of operating budget at 5.4% in fiscal year 23, 5.5% for 24, 5.3% for fiscal year 25. And then for 26, it sort of climbs up to 5.6%. And then in fiscal year 27, the number that is put in here is essentially calculates to 5.6%. And Pam, if I understand that correctly, the number where that the capital projects that we're considering here in this committee for this, upcoming fiscal year that we're considering, what gets fed into the calculation here is the $60,000 of debt that's in, I don't know, it's like row 15 or something. But the debt ban interest of $60,000. And if I understand correctly, what you're telling me earlier, Pam, that's based upon a $1.6 million borrowing for this fiscal year. To put that in perspective, if we look at what the proposed plan was, it is regional schools. The roof was about $927,000. The Pine Hill water supply tank, as written here, was $300,000. So that's $1.2 million. The roadway management of $450,000 would be then up to $1.6+ million. The stormwater farm pond was $200,000. So that's like 1.8 or so plus $million. So just on some of the bare bone type borrowing that we've already considered in part, and we haven't yet entirely voted on here today, but we're already up at like $1.82 million. And so what that means for next year in terms of the debt service, $60,000 is maybe a little aspirational. However, that doesn't really factor in the principal cost that'll happen in the following year, right? So you initially you have the interest that you can kind of calculate in, but I don't think that this fiscal year 27 estimate has actual principal payment estimated into it. So what we have is 5.6% as a percentage of operating budget. To the extent we were actually the town was to appropriate all of the items on this capital plan, it would be in excess of even this 5.6%. To the extent that the town sets the budget at less than $38 million. So for example, maybe it comes in at $36.5 million, then that percentage climbs up to almost 5.8, 5.9%. And that's not even factoring in any capital borrowing more than $1.6 million. So if our target is sort of this general rule of thumb of around 5% as a percentage of operating, there's a lot of things on this capital plan that wouldn't be able to be approved this year in order to maintain target, frankly. So, you know, and then one of the other things, if you go back, I apologize, Jeannie, if you could switch back to the other spreadsheet, the first tab has down at the bottom in the red section, talks about what the debt, total debt balance is. And Pam, I actually have a bit of a question here because I see the principal balance as of July 1st, 24 says 10.7 million. And then as of July 1st, 25, it's 13.5 million. And then it also says right next to that principal balance of July 1st, 14.7 million. And I'm not sure what the distinction there is. And Jeannie, I think if you just scroll down a little bit further on the screen is where those little boxes are. But Pam, do you know what I'm talking about? And do you know what the distinction is between principal balance of either 13.5 or 14.7? And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's okay.
Peter,
I
it's
just want to
Jeannie.
let,
Real quick, I don't know if you can see that Jeremy has his hand raised.
No, I actually can't see it very well, but Jeremy, can you let just Pam answer that question? And I apologize for not recognizing you earlier.
so I think those are just the beginning principal balances for each year. I use that on my debt schedules with DLS. Doesn't really have anything to do with the debt mountain.
Okay, so as of July 1st, 2025, is the principal balance 13.5 or is it 14.7? Do you know?
Can you scroll all the way down to the bottom? Like what numbers are you looking at?
Jeannie, it's like just a couple of rows below the viewpoint that you have on your screen there. I'm not sure if she can just bump it down a little bit. If
Like-
not a big
Those are
deal.
just for me for my DLS reports. They don't fill in for the debt mountain at all.
No, I understand that. I just didn't know whether or not the number is 13.5 or it's sub 14.7. But we don't have to cover it. But Jeremy, it sounded like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to help clarify some of the things that you had said. One, this isn't necessarily on your agenda tonight, but we are certainly happy to put a presentation together, and Pam and I can come back at a future meeting and go over this. But since you opened the discussion, I just wanted to clarify some of the things that you said. So all of the debt that Sherborn carries for capital, if it's approved as debt, is approved as excluded debt. So it's outside of your tax levy. So, but we still have to budget for that in the operating budget. What you incorrectly said what was budgeted in the operating budget. What's currently budgeted in the operating budget is for a short-term ban until we do a long-term borrowing. That $60,000 is just a short-term ban. that is not the actual debt service load if the town approved those projects. As currently proposed, if the town approved all the projects that are on, the compile list, the debt service would increase by $360,000. That's that's included in one of the spreadsheet Pam put together. That's the actual debt service that would be excluded, and would be, put into, what folks would pay on their property tax bills. In the budget, however, we have to carry a cost for short-term borrowing so that we have liquidity to be able to begin the projects, but before we do a long-term borrowing. So I just wanted to make that clear. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Jeremy. I tried to say that did not include principal payments. So sorry. I apologize if it was confusing.
yeah, but again, we're happy to put together more of a presentation for you to use your time efficiently. But if all the projects are approved as compiled for you, the operating budget would have to increase by $360,000 in excluded debt. So that's about what, if I have a $36 million budget, it's about 10%, right?
That's only 1%.
1%. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anything else to clarify? I appreciate your insight.
I'd appreciate a presentation.
So we have at least one request, I'm sure, to be seconded by the rest of us for that presentation at some point. This was to provide some data points for the committee to understand sort of some of the impact, immediate and otherwise, on capital expenditures and borrowing. So I think Nora is also saying yes. So
absolutely.
we're all in favor of you providing us with additional information, Jeremy and Pam and Deb, to the extent that I know she's not here, but.
Okay. So when you set a date and a time, please let us know so we have advance notice.
Could that be in conjunction with, but can we do that with advisory by any chance at the same time? Do you think that would be helpful?
Does advisory already sort of ask for this? And is that something that was in the works, contemplating for advisory?
I haven't received
Sounds
that
like no.
specific request from advisory.
Okay.
I
So-
think I would propose that we try to use our staff time efficiently. So if that is in envision for both committees, that I would suggest that we try to do that simultaneously.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to that. I just didn't know if it had already been floated out there, but our advisory member here is going to liaise, I'm sure, with advisory.
I think it would be important for advisory to see this also. At the same time, not double.
Yeah, so that would be up to you two committees and the chairs to schedule a joint
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
And again, we're happy to present and provide information. We just need to have advance notice so that we can prepare.
Sure. And in terms of advance notice, what is a reasonable amount of notice to actually be able to put, as you said, a presentation together? Or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is that you were contemplating.
A week would be nice, but I mean, you have to post your meeting agenda at least 48 hours ahead of time. So even, prior to 48 hours would be helpful.
I don't know off the top of my head if we're having an advisory meeting next Wednesday.
Well, in any case, we'll obviously we'll liaise, work it out, and make sure everybody has time to the extent that they want to put a presentation together.
Thank you.
All right. So, in terms of discussing this, does anyone have questions here of me or want to talk about the data anymore or?
No,
I was just gonna say that there is an advisory meeting on February 11th,
okay, thank you.
at least on my calendar.
That is next Wednesday.
So could you make that?
Well, oh, am I available next
Yes.
Wednesday? Oh, that's a greater question.
We can talk offline.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
try
we'll
to
figure
figure
that
out
out. Okay.
schedules.
Ideally, it would be great next week.
Yeah, I also just want to make sure to the extent that that works with the workflow and everybody on the staff.
Okay.
All right, so if no other discussion on that, I know Sean is here and I appreciate you joining us, Sean, and I want to try to use your time effectively. Is there any, other than the water tank, are there updates to stormwater or any other sort of capital budget requests that you'd want to talk about today?
Well, the farm pond, and Jeremy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the select board voted to pull that from the warrant this year. Hoping we could find funding elsewhere. So the first item on yours, is that correct, Jeremy?
Yeah, the select board talked at their last meeting and would desire that we chase after grants before requesting town funding for the farm pond access. We have a grant application package together that we're optimistic about to submit to the MVP 2.0 program that the application's open and we're going to get that in. We would know by April timeframe whether we get the grant or not, but it's the preference of the select board to, keep this project on the capital plan as fully grant funded. And then if we are not successful with the grant to revisit town funds next year. And I would
So
just
you're saying that
suggest
for fiscal year 28?
28 would be revisited. However, if we're successful in getting grant funding, we would proceed with the project this year.
Would the grant funding cover 100% of the cost?
Yes.
And you think, just trying to put capital plan in perspective here, that it's not likely, but any idea of what the percentage of success might be?
Of all of the capital projects, this one has the best chance of getting grant funding. And it will fare quite well in this program. It's for municipal vulnerability preparedness. The project, helps with stormwater and runoff and such to the farm pond, has access issue. It's a really good project for the grant. So we're very optimistic.
Who's the grantor?
That would be the Commonwealth.
Okay.
Could I ask, is if the grant comes through, this will be done during fiscal year 27? Does it still have to be approved by a vote of town meeting to do the project?
No,
Okay, and then
we're not
if
asking, we wouldn't be asking for a town appropriation. The select board
Okay.
would accept the grant, and we'd build the project.
Okay, then if the grant does not come through, you're talking about moving it forward to being town funded in fiscal year 28?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize for asking you guys to be the messengers here, but is the issue about just like, because I could imagine we vote for it, we approve it, and if it doesn't get grant funding, then we're borrowing the money and the project gets to go move much faster going forward. Is there some concern with other projects being a higher priority, or why is this one getting pushed?
Because it has the most likelihood of getting outside funding from the town. And the select board are very concerned about the budget and affordability. Are looking at all alternatives
Okay, yeah, no, I was just, if it fails, then we would be in the same situation, but just delaying the expense a year. Essentially is the only benefit is just delay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a great project. Might not be as high on the list as replacing a police cruiser or something,
Okay.
but as far as the other public works projects, I'd suggest you try to follow what's on your agenda.
You want to be more pointed than that?
You don't have any other beyond this project, the Farm Pond project. There's no other public works projects on your agenda for capital.
There's Pine Hill, the Pine Hill water system is on there though. Well, Pine Hill Capital.
I don't
Which
see
is why
that.
I came, isn't it?
That's consideration of schools capital requests. So
Yes, yes.
that would
Right.
be
Okay.
considered all the schools, I guess.
So Peter, I sent you an update and that the pricing was updated to advisory and the select board a while ago. Uh, the initial price did not come from the engineers. That kind of, I don't know if Dawn came up with that. So we updated that to the, Jeremy, you don't have the plan in front of you, do you? I think it was updated to 510 or 500.
So what I have is the from Raymond Willis at Fuss and O'Neill, which has a total opinion of budget cost of $506,250. $250. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, that's what we're, yeah. I'm referring to that as the best engineer's estimate we have at the moment. And Don Fattori, I believe, updated the ask to both the school committee and then I think back as we presented it to advisory. I don't know, some weeks ago it was at the either 500 or 510. That's where it needs to be, and until we have different information, but we won't have any other information until long after you write the report.
So just to make sure I understand what is available, I have this table that came from Fuss and O'Neill, which I sent to the other committee members, and we'll incorporate it into the minutes by reference here. But is there like some sort of backup documentation to that? Something else besides this table?
Well, there's design, they're in the design phase right now, so there isn't drawings to give you right now. And then there's, a remediation report for removing the tank. They obviously did testing on lead and asbestos, which are both present, obviously. That's why it's priced into there. So they use that and the preliminary designs for that estimate. That's all you're going to have. The intent is to go out to bid and have the bids back ready for contract before town meeting. Because the construction timeline is July, August. It has to be done during the summer. And it's being mandated by DEP that it be done this summer.
You're saying it's being mandated that's by DEP because of the PFAS? Is that?
No, because of
And the
the water,
asbestos.
the removal. No, not the asbestos. That wasn't really known, and the asbestos isn't an issue in the water. The tank, for many, many, many years, Sherborn has talked about doing something with that tank. It's original to the building, and it needed a significant amount of work, and it was, they basically were on the verge of giving them a demand order by means of the last sanitary site survey. So rather than doing a bunch of work to a tank that's the size of a submarine inside the building and then having to remove it anyway, the project the scope of the project is basically cut the tank apart into pieces and get it out of the building and replace it with a smaller tank that's appropriately sized and designed, and a pump unit that will feed the building, and then that gives space to put in treatment. Right now, there's no space inside that building. We'd have to put an addition on the building to add any water treatment. There's no water treatment going on at the building at all. So there's going to need to be softening and PFAS removal, and there's no space for it because of the size of the tank.
Okay. At some point, to the extent that there is design drawings, anything you can share with us to make us a little bit of a better sense, maybe visually, of what this is, that would be helpful. But I mean, so it sounds like this estimate of, let's just call it $510,000, is the best that the town is going to get essentially before the meeting, except for maybe, I guess, when it goes out to bid and people get bids back.
It's the best you're going to get before you write your report. You're going to vote on this as it is. Town meeting is going to vote on hopefully a bid back and to fund it. But it's not going to be significantly before that. It's not going to be before the advisory hearing. I doubt it would be. So we're going to march on with the estimate that we have. We're working diligently to have the plans and get it out to bid.
Okay. And I think you said something to the effect of Dawn had come up with or somebody else had come up with the original request of $300,000.
Yeah, I'm updating it because that was prior to having any real engineer's estimate. So it was just basically a preliminary number to get into the capital budget plan.
Okay.
So regardless of where it came from, that we have good data to say that it needs to be the 506, 509 until
Okay.
we get real numbers back.
Does it make sense to, if we're going to take a vote, does it make sense to round it to say 510, or do you think you want to just 506, 250? I'm not sure who the actual proponent here is, but what would you want to see on a warrant if it was you who were the magic pen?
Yeah, I was trying to match it with what they sent, but if I look it up, I'm going to crash the computer.
What they sent is $506,250. So you want to, that's the request, or is it 510 or?
If you're going to vote, make it 510.
Okay.
It may or may not match exactly what Dawn put in the paperwork before. If she updated it, I don't know. Maybe she didn't because she didn't send it to you. I thought you had an updated request.
I didn't get one from Dawn. I believe that she was thinking that you were taking the lead and sort of talking about this, and I was kind of hoping that Dawn would be able to pop in and at least watch the discussion, if not participate. But
He's in the middle of doing the school's budget right now. This is the same night that they're doing the budget with the school committees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have
no, I
three
know,
school committee meetings tonight that I think Dawn is tied up with.
yeah, she said that until about 8:30, perhaps.
Want me to make a motion?
I'm fine. I'm hearing anybody make a motion or have questions.
Can I ask a question of, I was a little confused when you were talking about what DEP's expectation was. Is there a specific directive from them? Is there a timetable? Or was this just a recommendation from DEP?
No, it's a directive, and the timetable is this summer. We committed to getting it done this summer. They wanted it done immediately. They wanted it done a year ago. As far as the tank itself. So we were doing the preliminary plans for PFAS at the same time DEP was kind of throwing the hammer down on the tank itself, and both things happen to happen.
And can you just articulate briefly, is it that the tank has been like corroded so much that it's like leaching metals or something into the drinking water?
Yes, but not in an unsafe manner. The way you said that could be misconstrued as unsafe drinking water. It's not.
Okay.
But if we were going to keep the tank, someone physically would have to go inside that tank, remove the coating, prep the tank, and recoat the inside. Because it's a steel tank, so you basically as you get pitting on the coating, you have raw steel, which will rust and corrode. It's somewhat safe, but it'll eventually fail.
So it's currently safe, but won't be forever. And so the DP said, fix it this summer.
Last summer.
Exactly. Fix it or remove it.
Okay. All right. Is that
Yeah, can I make a comment about voting on this right now?
sure?
I thought Laura's comment at our last meeting about waiting until everything was on the table and then voting
Okay.
was a good idea.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else thinks that's a good idea, particularly since we're trying to work against a ceiling.
I
Sure.
agree.
I generally agree with this thing where there's a DEP edict saying fix it or else. And it involves children's drinking water. I'm inclined to say yes and prioritize this one above other projects.
I'll make you a deal. We'll vote on this one, but not the other ones.
Deal.
Okay. Want me to say, all right, I make a motion to approve $506,250 for the water storage system at Pine Hill Elementary School. That also includes the new PFAS.
Anyone second this?
Do you want me to say it?
No, I just, all those in favor of recommending to the town to appropriate the total of $506,250 for the replacement of the water tank at Pine Hill and associated systems, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. So thank you very much, Sean. It sounds like there's an interest in not having any discussion on any other town facilities since it wasn't expressly in the agenda tonight. So you're welcome to stay, but I don't think that there's another topic that that you would be covering at the moment.
I'm gonna check out. I've been up for quite a while.
And well, we know definitely at this time of year when you have feet of snow falling, it's very busy for you. One of the things that I will ask somebody else about stormwater and more about the past appropriations of stormwater. I see that there may be interest being paid on some of those. And I just want to confirm that. I'm not going to ask you anything about it, but to the extent you want to hang on for that question and hear what the answer is, you're more than welcome. Second of all, there are some, I guess, pending capital requests for town buildings. We typically meet on Tuesday nights, as you know. Is there a Tuesday night in the future that you are either available or definitely not available to talk about any of those?
I thought you already voted on it.
So in the proposal for the fiscal year 27 capital plan, there's a request to fund capital repairs and maintenance of the town's 6 municipal buildings, and it looks like $800,000 and then $250,000 in free cash is on the request. As if that's been pulled, then that makes our life easier.
Hasn't been pulled. It's getting adjusted though. Let's not do it next week. Because me and Jeremy both have a couple meetings next week. And it
Okay.
sounds like you guys might, hopefully, are going to be jumping on advisory. Let's do whatever meeting you have after that. Because
Okay.
we're adjusting those totals. I suspect more than we already did. So let me circle with Jeremy and put us on the agenda for your following meeting that's not next week.
Okay, and just as I note on mine, I see that there's also a request for recycling center equipment and infrastructure, $75,000. Is that different, or you wanna? Is that also something you could speak to in a future meeting?
Yeah, I thought you voted on that.
No.
No,
Facilities and transfer station. It all got updated. Um,
You spoke at
Yeah.
length about it at advisory.
put those both on. I'm sorry. I already went through those with advisory.
Yeah.
It's hard to recollect what I went through with advisory and what we're going through. It was kind of a scramble before the last advisory meeting. So definitely
Sure.
put both of those on. And let me
recycling
know when
and
that is. Is that 2 weeks from now or?
town buildings.
We're gonna have to talk about our schedule towards the end of the meeting, but it will
Okay.
most likely will not be next week. So, most likely 2 weeks or perhaps 3 weeks, depending on people's schedule. And then also town facilities and infrastructure design / planning, 75,000 I have on here. That would be another one, unless that's being dropped or pulled or.
No, it goes hand in hand with the facilities.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much, Sean. We appreciate you coming, and hopefully you can get a good night's sleep some point in the future.
Thanks.
Pam, I don't know if you can answer this question, or I know Deb's not here, but I was looking at the spreadsheets that you had sent previously and that we had previously had pulled up here tonight. And it looked like for some of the older appropriated stormwater projects from fiscal year or all town meeting, excuse me, for 23 and 24, that there's some stormwater requests where there may be some interest being paid on, meaning that the money or some amount of money had been borrowed on those projects. I know that most of the money has not been expended for those projects because I think that the requirements have sort of changed over time. It's a bit of a moving target, what has actually been required by the various regulatory agencies concerning stormwater. And I don't know if money was borrowed and we are paying interest, or it was never borrowed and I'm just misreading the spreadsheet wrong. I don't know if you could speak to that.
Which
If not-
spreadsheet is it? Is it one of Deb's spreadsheets?
It was the Debt Mountain one, I believe, or it might have been what Deb had sent, but you know
I mean,
what?
there's only one
Yeah.
stormwater that we haven't borrowed yet, but I can't tell you what's been spent on those.
Sure. So why don't I just talk to either you or Deb offline, and I can bring that information back to the meeting or back to the committee at some point.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. All right. So wanted to move on to, and I apologize, I think this is on the agenda, but I'm not positive. But the police vehicle, we had talked about this previously. Aha, it is on the agenda. Excellent. We had talked about this previously. I got an updated bit of information from the police chief as to the final dollar amount of the request for the police vehicle. It is $75,000. So that was the sort of final piece of the puzzle. I don't know, Corey, if you just want to hold this until the end, or and we could just note it down that the request is now 75,000 and we can vote on it later. I'm open to the committee on how to handle this one.
What did we do?
So this was, I think, actually the December meeting that you
We
might
just did December 9th, right?
correct.
Okay, yeah, we didn't vote on any of those things, so we can add that to the rest of the requests and,
At the end.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, just noted $75,000 request is the final dollar amount here. I did have an update about recreation's capital request. I had spoken with Mr. Welch as well as one of the members of the rec committee. This is my understanding, and I apologize if I am a poor messenger and something is lost in translation. But first and foremost, there is a meeting of the Recreation
Commission.
Sorry, I was about to say committee. Next Tuesday, at which point I think they'll be discussing all their business, but the Jameson project will come up during the course of that meeting. Generally, to echo something I think that Nora had previously reported to us, is that when the bids came back in, or the estimates came back in for the converting all of the sort of Jameson 2, 3, and 4 into a two-field configuration where you had a softball diamond and a large 90-foot baseball, 90-foot baseline baseball field, that was the cost had come back much higher than they had expected. And so then they started trying to figure out, what to do in terms of, well, do we, find new estimates? We try to change things. How do we make it perhaps simpler, et cetera? They are now looking at whether or not just to sort of do Jameson 4 kind of as is, using the money that's already been appropriated, and then looking to convert or at least improve Jameson 2, either convert it into a softball field or make it sort of a mix where you could use softball and baseball on the same diamond on Jameson 2, using a new appropriation to do that in terms of their request. I think that it's really up to the commission to sort of finalize what their ultimate request to the town is in terms of their appropriation. And so that, I think, may happen at next meeting. And so it's sort of wait at the moment to figure out if they are going to, come before us and ask for the money to be appropriated for Jameson 2 to be either converted or improved. Because of playing service, I'm not sure if anyone's been playing baseball over there recently. Jameson 2 is a pretty terrible field at the moment in terms of its condition and its safety. And Jameson 3, which is the current softball field, would ultimately also be on the sort of capital improvement plan for them. And so they're trying to come to a final decision. If not at this meeting, maybe it's later on down the road and this gets pulled from town meeting. Anything?
No.
Okay. All right. So we're perhaps moving through this meeting faster than we
Jeremy's
normally do.
here, I think.
Oh,
We
right,
missed over
right,
the
right.
assessors. Oh, okay. For the capital request from the assessor's office, I think that's why Jeremy's here.
Yes. Jeremy, do you want to speak to CAMA?
Yeah, sure, happy to. So this is a request for the replacement of the computer-assisted mass appraisal system that the assessor's office uses to perform appraisals and assessments for property value. The current system that is used, it's called Patriots Properties. It's an old platform that actually sits on physical servers in the basement. We've been told by the vendor that it's nearing the end of service life, meaning they're soon, relatively soon, they're going to be not servicing that software anymore. So we would be sort of on our own. So it's time to upgrade. It's been a number of years since the town has upgraded. Um, we would move towards a cloud-based system. We would put this out as an RFP, and do a request for proposal process, given the value. We have an RFP drafted, and we'll get that going fairly soon. However, to support the request, we do have a vendor quote, to support the request for $80,000. This would be proposed to be funded via free cash. It's timely to do this upgrade now, in that we wouldn't want to upgrade the camera system at the same year that we have a total townwide revaluation, which we will have in FY '28. So it's timely to do this upgrade first, in advance of that townwide um, update to the property values.
Jeremy, can you just briefly explain and very briefly what the distinction is between a town-wide reevaluation as opposed to what happens sort of every year where assessments change?
Sure. Annually, the property values, the assessors have to ensure that the assessed property values are as close to the market rate as they can be. So they're adjusted annually to try to keep with that. And that's done by, sort of comparables and adjustments more on a gross scale, um, to all similar properties, and that's done annually. Um, the town must revalue all the properties, however, on a periodic basis. I think it's every 6 years. And that's a much more comprehensive process that's required every 6 years, that it looks into more information to revalue the properties. So that's a much more labor intensive effort that's not done every year.
Jeremy, I had a quick question. How's the assessor situation for getting an assessor? And is this something that would help facilitate, or is this something that really everybody's using now, quote unquote, a lot of towns in Massachusetts, this particular program or
Yeah, I mean,
software?
we have to put it out to bid, so we will have to entertain some proposals from various vendors. But yes, I mean, we do seem to have a preference in the platform. Upgrading to something more current, yes, is an advantage as we try to staff our assessing department. Um, Given that the workload of that department does not warrant a full-time director of assessing, we've been trying to share that workload with another community, but we have to have a partner to do that with. So we've been diligently hunting for a partner, but um, have decided to move forward with advertising a part-time director of assessing, to see what's out there in the market. Um, so that is going to be posted. Actually, that was posted yesterday, the job advertisement. But if we were to find a partner to share, I know another community, it would be desirable to have a current CAMA system that other communities are familiar with, which this project would do.
Thank you.
I mean, does it make sense to not decide which ultimate software to go with until the person who's going to be using it can provide some input?
Yeah, that's a consideration.
Is the expectation that the assessor's office will be staffed up before, this will be appropriated and that process will be going forward?
I'm not sure how much of a response we'll get from the job ad. So it's really what the market's going to bear. So we need to move forward with this project. There's only 3 vendors that do this. So it's not like, you go into, some retail store and there's 50 different options. There's literally 3 different vendors that do it. And one of those does not do much in Massachusetts. So there's not much choice.
Okay.
And this is still considered like a proprietary software system. It's definitely not something you just buy off the shelf, right?
No, you can't buy it off the shelf, but it does still need to be bid. It's not sole source.
No, I'm just trying to make sure if it's sort of within a capital expenditure. So, I mean, if you're buying Microsoft licenses, I'm not sure if that's a capital project, but if you're buying proprietary software, it would seem to be a capital project.
The value is $80,000. So this is the only way that we can fund that. There's no operating budget that can support $80,000. So it has to be a capital request.
Um, yeah, I mean, no, reasonable minds can differ on whether or not something falls into the definition of capital request. Just the total dollar amount doesn't make it a capital project, but
If you
it
have
sounds
some
like
other magic source of funding, please let me know. But it's got to come forward as a capital request to be able to fund this. There's no opportunity to do this in the operating budget. So we can call it a small capital non-recurring cost. That's fine, but it's going to be some form of a capital request outside of the operating budget.
okay. Yeah, no, I
And
mean, it's
currently
obviously,
proposed to be funded via free cash.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Which means it's not being borrowed, which means it doesn't necessarily need to meet the statutory definition of capital project. But I'm just trying to evaluate it as if it was. And again, I think proprietary software would get us there, which is, I think, what you're telling me it is. Or no?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but yes, I'll agree with you.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions or
No, I make a motion to
hold it over for a vote for later?
hold it over for vote for later.
Or would you, I know if you want to move to vote on it, we can.
I'll follow Corey's lead.
Okay, Corey, do you want to hold this one over?
Well, if we're gonna do it, yeah, we're not gonna do it now.
So we're gonna vote it down, then might as well vote it down now. Why wait?
No. Can hold it.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Jeremy. We're gonna take it under advisement. And I guess we'll vote on this one. This one is, the proposal is free cash, so it's not, okay. All right, well, in that case, we will, take it under advisement and we'll vote on it at a subsequent meeting. Nora, just speaking of subsequent meetings, when is advisory's long day ordeal of voting on
I
it?
did actually put that on my calendar. Actually, Laura, do you have that on your calendar?
I do. I just found it.
I'm looking on Sunday, sorry.
It's on Saturday, the 21st of March.
21st, yep. Saturday, the 21st of March.
With a holdover day, I think if we run over it'll be Monday, the 23rd.
Thank you.
Okay. And do you happen to have the town meeting date here? Or Jeremy, do you know when the warrants need to go to print? Or does anyone on?
It's usually the end of the week after their Saturday meeting.
And that would be
Yeah, the advice,
The
27.
advisory report goes to print. The warrant doesn't get printed, but the advisory report would be shortly after the advisory hearing.
it has to be in households 10 days prior to town meeting. So it'll go to print probably somewhere around April. It takes a week. So probably around April 8th, not 10th. Give me a
And then
second,
in
I can
terms
give you
of
that.
the finalization of the language for the warrants, at what point is that? Or are we past that one?
You mean, yeah, that's done. You mean the motions at town meeting?
The
Well, that'll
select
go in
board
front of
will vote the language of the warrant in possibly next week or the meeting after that. the select board set the town meeting warrant.
Right.
They've closed the warrant, so we know what articles will be included, but the actual wording of the warrant is being worked on right now. And the select
Okay.
board will vote that in the next meeting or two.
Okay.
And then there's usually a meeting with the moderator and town council, et cetera, when they go over the language of the motions,
Okay.
which you may or may not be interested in.
Yeah, no, I feel like we. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the sort of timeline and some of the deadlines that we're ultimately working under. All right. So one other question I had, and it's probably spinning out from the stormwater. I know that money had been appropriated, and this is more just sort of general capital reappropriations. Is if it's of a same or very similar project, the money can be spent on it, if I'm remembering correctly. But otherwise, it has to be reappropriated by the town. I didn't look up before the meeting what the exact language is for whether or not something is a quote like same project or similar. Does anyone recall what that is off the top of their heads?
Well, I think you're talking about if previously appropriated money for stormwater use is unspent and it's still sitting there appropriated,
Correct.
can it be recycled in a new stormwater-like project, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's just a question of what the previous stormwater was for. Stormwater is a pretty big category.
Right.
So, and I don't know what the previous ones were.
But I mean, my recollection for those stormwater projects is that the sort of the Charles River watershed, there were various environmental regulations that were in place to make sure that stormwater is being captured, so it wasn't leaching either the phosphates or other sort of contaminants into the Charles River watershed area.
Mhm.
And so that would have been designed and captured based on all sorts of different things. And I'm just trying to remember what it would be, what it would take to be able to use that money that's previously appropriated. I think it's something like if it's the same or similar. So Jeremy, if you happen to have that language or idea of the language.
I do. And I just want to, again, remind you that the stormwater is not on your agenda tonight. And there's a lot that we could inform your discussion on that. So, and we are currently not proposing to recycle any of the stormwater funds. There's additional work that needs to be done, and the prior appropriations have been committed for projects. So we are not proposing to reappropriate any stormwater funds at this time. But in general, reappropriation of funds does require town meeting action if it's for a different project. If it's for prior appropriations can be used, not best practice per se, but it can be used for similar things. But
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that
if you're looking for reappropriations to fund other projects, stormwater is not where you should be looking.
No, I wasn't. Frankly, I was. So take a big step back. I wasn't suggesting we mine those appropriations for anything, and nor was I implying or inferring the town was considering making that sort of a proposal. I just know that when money has been appropriated and then borrowed, so the cash is like sitting with the town, and the town is paying interest on it. And if there's no need for that particular project, in my mind, it's, well, is there a solution to stopping the interest being paid on it? Is it reappropriating to the extent it is not needed? It is using it if it's needed, or it's like somehow
Oh,
doing
it's
something
odd,
with the
but
money,
like, For
right?
example, Jameson 4.
So I was just
So,
trying to
no,
remember.
once
the actual-
the town borrows the money, you can't decide not to pay the interest. So
No,
it's a debt
So how
that
we
the town
fly back to
owes,
another
and the
point.
interest is due. Just hear me out. It's a debt that the town owes and is due. So I would say, the borrowed funds, however, in both cases, don't just sit in cash. They are in interest-bearing accounts. So the town is receiving some interest that's offsetting the interest. It's earning interest that's offsetting the borrowed interest. So there is some net there. Yes, not a good practice to borrow funds and sit on it. It's best to expend the funds for what they are intended for as soon as possible. Yes, agreed.
No, yeah, and no, look, not casting aspersions on anyone. I'm just trying to remember myself what the restrictions were in terms of using money that had been previously appropriated for other uses. And I thought that there was a particular phrase, and I'm just blanking on what it was. That's all.
I mean, in general, appropriation should be used for what they were voted. So
Agreed.
in the case you've got town meeting approval, you've also got a ballot vote. The borrowed funds should be used for their intended purpose.
I agree.
There
And that's
is
the
some
transparency.
flexibility if it's for a similar project, but not necessarily best practice.
No, best practice is always go back to the town and say, we want to use this for something else. Will you improve it? So
Yeah.
I think we're probably all in concurrence with that. So anyways, all right, what else is on the agenda that
The final thing about just a quick little thing with,
Oh, yeah, so let's talk about that at the moment. Unless Dawn has appeared, which I don't think she has. I'm not sure if she will appear. Go ahead.
so it's about, and Jeremy, if you don't mind staying on for a little bit about that, just kind of exploring. Well, first of all, governance task force was on yesterday, and I really highly suggest, I'm going to say this to advisory, everybody take a look at that as soon as it's posted on YouTube. I joined at 7:00, thinking it started at 7, started at 6:30, but it was very, Jeremy, could you, I know I saw on it was Cape Cod, Sudbury, and then another person, I think Chelmsford, I'm going off the top of my mind, who you invited on for that governance. And it was really fascinating how they talk about capital budget slash, advisory. Do you mind just giving a little recap on that? And then just
Yeah,
the
sure.
thought
The
of,
government's task force 3, has been underway with their work. They asked me to help schedule a discussion with a committee of the Massachusetts Municipal Managers Association. They have a form of government committee, and several of those members attended the form of government committee meeting last night and had some discussion about different forms of government and town structure for similar sized towns as Sherborn, and what kind of best practices are and what communities have been sort of moving towards, the benefit of having a charter or the benefit of having more unified finance control and budget development. Yeah, there was a pretty healthy discussion
Yeah.
last night. I think Andy is with the town of Sudbury. He's the Sudbury's town manager. There was a town manager from Chelmsford and someone from Cape Cod. They've had
Right.
other roles as well. All of them have more experience than myself. 30 plus years each. And I think it was a healthy conversation last night.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. So I highly suggest taking, a look at that once that's posted. And I do think there's value in looking at, kind of combining that. Well, first of all, more for having the budget makers not come before us twice, and then with varying information, but also having long-term planning would be interesting to do in conjunction with advisory. So more, synergy, I think. Yeah, something, and I'm sure governance task force is looking at that too. perhaps. So just thought we'd have a discussion
Yeah.
about it, what your thoughts are. You obviously have more experience on capital budget than I do. And advisory,
Yeah.
I defer to
I-
both of you.
I see the benefit of having the requestor only having to do a presentation before a joint committee. I see the benefit of that. However, they usually do a truncated version of that on the Saturday meeting, the final voting meeting for advisory. What I kind of think about is I'm not sure logistically, mechanically, how it would work out. Would you have 9 + 3, 12 people?
Well, really, I'm already on advisory, so it'd be 11.
11, well, and it couldn't be any number anyway. So you'd have 11 people. Would everybody vote on the advisory recommendations? Would everybody vote on the capital recommendations? Would you meet separately to discuss and vote? It could easily turn into just an 11-person finance committee. And I'm not sure how you would divvy up the primary responsibilities in a way that would be efficient, I guess.
I think it would be, the way I look at it is you'd probably have a subcommittee that would specialize in kind of long-term planning.
Would they come to all the advisory meetings and meet
Yes.
separately?
Depends on how often they have to meet. I don't know. I mean, it's all just up for
Yeah.
discussion, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on that point, you said it's like a subcommittee of advisory. If the subcommittee, if you only need 3 people to be a subcommittee, I don't know how big a subcommittee should be in order to be actually a subcommittee versus just the whole committee. If it's 3 people, it's essentially yourself, Laura, and one other person, because Laura and yourself are attending most of these capital budget meetings. So, I mean,
Or it could be you and Corey and somebody else. Yeah, I was just saying, I'm not trying to.
right, I was just
for intents and purposes, I would.
the person on capital budget
Right.
is advisory. The alternative, or alternate, sorry, is also
Right.
on advisory. So to the extent that there is a third person on advisory who's, their assigned duties, I think we have now assigned duties,
Liaison, so to speak.
is to be the liaison to us / the third member of the subcommittee on advisory to talk about capital and long-term planning. Maybe that achieves a little bit of this sort of synergy, but in terms of actually having the budget makers, and to be honest, there's also a lot of staff that is attending these
Of course, yeah.
and I'm concerned about their time as well. And so to sort of minimize that burden, to have advisory, like to the extent they want the full presentation, either attend our meetings or we attend their meetings where it's only talking capital projects or something like that.
But we
makes
still
sense
look
to
at
me.
capital projects.
I'll have to say
advisory.
practice has changed over time. I can't speak about what happened before I was ever on advisory, but from the time I was coming forward, which is the past 30 years, it used to be that the liaison, and that would be you and possibly Laura, depending on how that worked out, that when, for instance, DPW would come to advisory to make a recommendation, or would come to make a pitch for their operating.
To capital budget or advisory?
No, not to.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Budget, yeah.
Okay,
No,
operating,
to
okay,
advisory,
all right.
to make a pitch for their operating
Operating,
budget.
okay.
And at the end of the discussion, there would occasionally be, there may or may not have been a discussion about their capital item, but the primary carrier of the message of their capital requests to advisory was yourself. It was the liaison. That's why one of the members of the capital budget committee is somebody from advisory. And you would carry the DPW message to advisory if they had any, if they wanted to have a quick synopsis, if they had questions, whatever. And they the general position of the advisory committee was that unless they had particular objections to the recommendation of the capital budget, or if they had some pieces of new information or something, they generally deferred to the recommendation of capital. Over time, it's almost like advisory has not only operated as an operating budget committee, they've also operated as a capital budget committee. And that creates two issues, is that what do you do when you have two committees who have opposing recommendations on the same proposal? That's one problem that comes up. And the other one is it puts the requestor in the position of having to make two full-blown presentations to two different groups.
Which they have been doing. I mean, that's not.
And which kind of, and I'm not sure that combining the committees is the way to save the problem. It may be that the issue is to be more specific about what the division of labor is between the two committees.
I have to say, well, I don't think it's in our bylaws to have a capital budget committee.
It is.
It is?
Yes.
It is. So if it's
Yeah, the capital
I
budget
should say in the
committee
bylaws, but it's not for the state, right? It's not a state mandate.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, not bylaws.
The capital
but
budget
state.
committee is an artifact of your bylaws. It's not a requirement
So-
of Mass General Law.
I'm sorry.
I just
like
want to
saying-
clarify as well. Advisory is more than just an operating budget review. They're charged with reviewing every warrant article and making a recommendation. So
Right. So it just seems
that includes
it's-
capital.
Is that statutory
So-
as well?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, I
that's
think
more
so.
statutory. The role of advisory for town meeting.
And I think it's also in our bylaws.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
know
right.
that. But the dynamic between, is
Yeah.
it bylaw generated responsibilities or is it
Yeah.
statutory responsibility?
But don't you
I
think
agree.
that it shouldn't be one entity? I mean, again, I really don't have any skin in the game on this. I'm not trying to take it. But, listening to Jeremy's advice and then kind of thinking of this through, it makes sense to have one entity know, everything that's going on. Like, I think that old way of doing it doesn't make any sense because you're having two different, capitals in a silo. And if from what you said in the past, capital will be in a silo and then, finance/advisory would be in a silo. So you have, one thing does affect, I mean, as you just mentioned earlier in the beginning, you have these capital requests that people, want, but then a lot of that money comes out of operating for the financing of it, correct? Right?
It comes
So-
from tax dollars
Well-
ultimately.
So, of course, but I just feel like there should be, in my opinion,
Well, let me ask you a question. If we have an 11-person committee, and first of all, I have trouble, I think 11 people in a committee where we have these kinds of discussions is very difficult. But when does the capital budget subcommittee discuss in their subcommittee their business? And when does the advisory committee discuss their business?
okay, so I just want to say, like, I'm on both, so I'm here 2 nights a week. Okay, so
Okay.
I just, so I think that, it's not even that the subcommittee, and I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head here. They would still be part of advisory, helping with, especially, depth of knowledge and breadth of knowledge on capital for
So
both
they'd
of
be
you.
meeting 2 nights a week, not just you.
No, but for long-term planning, you could meet just once a month. I mean, just like, let's look and get together and whatever. Jeremy, you could chime in here. I don't know, but it's not like you'd have
Yeah,
to be
I
meeting
guess
every
just to
week. It's
help-
more of a long-term planning committee to kind of,
Do you want to have a long-term subcommittee, or do you want to have a capital budget subcommittee?
well, I would believe it would, again, I'm just
No, okay.
having the conversation here based
Yeah,
on what
if I
Jeremy
could
brought
help.
up a couple of weeks ago with us. I haven't given this a
Okay.
lot of thought. And I haven't spoken to you because I don't want to break open meeting law. So that's why we're talking about it here is I just wanted your thoughts too. Again, I have no control of this or any, it's just that when it came up 2 weeks ago, towards the end of our meeting and Jeremy bringing it up, it's given me some thoughts, like how does that work? How does it look like? And then listening to the governance task force, just as a listener, not a participant last night. You know, it's interesting. It's not a state man, I didn't say bylaw, but state, I did say bylaw, but I meant state mandate. But it would be more so somebody that has some skin in the game with long-term planning, like this is what's going on. And also to be, for lack of a better word, the bad cop, like, hey, listen, time out. Like, we can't, this is
Well, I mean,
critical.
that's all of our role.
Well, it is.
No matter how many committees you have, they all should be the bad cop and say, enough is enough in terms of spending. So,
I mean,
I'm
we're
not-
all volunteers, so it's nice to kind of, I don't know. Go ahead. I didn't-
well, no, we are all volunteers, but by making it only one committee, it's still an all volunteer committee, right? Like you're not professionalizing the advisory committee
Right.
and having them get paid and be the bad cops. No, I mean, it's always all volunteer. But Jeremy, were you about to try to jump in on something, or are you just trying to stay out of the fray? I'm not sure which way.
I'll stay out of the fray. But the
Come into the fray.
conversations that I've had with the government study committee and that I have with my peers, and the observations that I've seen from other communities and now working for Sherborn for a little over 3 years, is that Sherborn's, by not having a town charter, by not having um, a structure of government that the town purposely intended, you have many different silos. There's no clear ownership of capital budget or operating budget. It's very hard for your chief elected officials, the select board, to implement policy, set policy and implement it because they don't have um, they have authority over the staff, but they don't have authority over the budget. They don't own the budget. Um, so there's a disconnect from your elected officials, your chief executive elected officials, to implement policy by setting budget because your budget responsibilities are so spread out. You've got budget makers. Nobody owns your budget until it's approved at town meeting and becomes your budget. It coalesces at town meeting. There is no one entity like the select board that put forward an operating budget and a capital budget and have ownership of that and that can set policy and financial policies that they can then implement. It's all spread out. So just my 2 cents, and I'll
Yeah, no, I
let you
appreciate
folks
that, Jeremy.
deliberate and discuss at will.
Can you, and perhaps maybe not deliberate forever, I'm sure people want to go to bed, but when you say it's spread out, can you articulate the, say, 3 or 4 buckets that, the budget for this falls under this umbrella? I think recreation,
I
for
can't,
example, the
I can't
commission
because
is
it's not
separate.
clarified. Your bylaws, and because you don't have a charter, your bylaws are not clear. It's not. You do everything by tradition. Traditionally, there are certain budgets that have, quote, fallen under the select board, but they're not put forward. I mean, like the Conservation Commission is appointed by the select board. That should be a select board budget. But it's not. It's your appointed members generally put forward your Conservation Commission budget. The Board of Health is an independently elected body. They have because of that, because it defaults to Mass General Law that was set forward more than 200 years ago. They have autonomy on expenditure and hiring of employees. They do not need to follow the policy put forward by the select board or advisory or anyone. They can put forward whatever they want. They think that might stick at town meeting. Any department, in essence, could do that and just whatever. Advisory is a recommendation to town meeting. It's not the actual
Right.
budget. It's a recommendation. So that's
So
sort
as-
of one of the missing
so-
pieces, really, that many other communities that have a little bit more fiscal management and oversight and control have clear ownership of personnel, HR, finances, budgeting. It's put forward. They all still have an advisory or a warrant committee that makes a recommendation at town meeting, but that their function, advisory's function is, is legislative, and approval of the budget. They're a function of town meeting, whereas developing a budget is generally the executive branch of government. That's not the way you're set up here in Sherburne.
So what you're saying is essentially it's the executive branch that puts forward the budget to be approved by the legislature, but there's no head of the executive branch. And so you have all
That's
these little
correct.
various lieutenants or captains who are saying, hey, I want $100,000, and you have to put it on the piece of paper that goes in front of the town meeting. You can't just scratch it off. It has to go before the
That's
people.
correct. Yeah, that's sort of in a nutshell. I think you summed it up.
Thank you, Jeremy, for your comments. And
Yep.
now back to our
Yeah, I do have a question for Jeremy, actually. If a town is structured so that it presents a budget package to town meeting, because in the end, it still has to be approved by town meeting, correct?
Yeah.
What is it, what happens if town meeting disagrees with the package?
It doesn't get approved. Town meeting's the ultimate arbiter. It has to get approved by town. If
So
it's
they
not
just
approved at
can't
town
get
meeting,
one.
there's no budget. But in the lead up to that, there's clear ownership of how that budget was put together, how capital projects interrelate with the operating budget, how both operating and capital budget interact with the long-term financial planning of the community and the goals of your community, presumably to try to become a little more affordable and sustainable and avoid budget overrides. Currently, as presented, your operating budget for the town of Sherburne is out of balance by $850,000. So, to have that context in all of your financial matters instead of all over the place and, oh, I heard this and I heard that, you would have a bit more control of your destiny as far as where you want to end up as a community and expending of your residents' tax dollars.
So
I,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Two comments, really. What is to prevent the people who are involved in the current structure from exercising that same kind of fiscal management over the budget requests? If conservation comes in and says they want, a large amount of money, and instead of just saying, well, tell us what it's for, and okay, if they were as strict, I guess I'll use that word, there could be a budget package that met the long-term financial goals of the town. And I say that because past experience, getting to a structure where there is a unified executive branch that concentrates the ability to put together a package is going to be a difficult sell, and it's going to take time. And what do you do between now and when you get to the time that something might change?
Good questions. All great questions. And the town of Sherburne has never deliberately thought about those questions in a broad sense. How do you want to operate your town? The town of Sherburne has never done that. It's coalesced over hundreds of years by little decisions here and there. All great questions that if the town chose, could undertake a charter commission and could vet all of that and determine how you want to structure your town government. I will say it's challenging to get departments that have different authority to work together. It is. How, sharing an administrative assistant among some of the town hall departments is easy. Among other town hall departments, it's a non-starter. It doesn't happen. And that's unfortunate.
Jeremy, this is perhaps a very idiotic question for someone who's lived in town for so long as I have. But the budget, when I think of the budget, I think of going to town meeting and it gets called out by line item by line item by line item. But that is what is drafted up and put into the advisory recommendation, as opposed to like the warrant itself doesn't have all those line items in it. Is that correct?
Omnibus.
And so when someone says puts a hold on some line item in the budget, that is just as to advisory's recommendation as to what the amount should be, which, is that right? Or is that, quote, the actual budget?
No, that's, again, there's no budget that there's no one overall budget. You've got recommendations put forward by advisory for every department. And
so
those are advisory recommendations. Yes.
Right. And so that's actually not even the budget makers' proposals. That is just what advisory is recommending the budget should be.
Right. So you're relying, because of that structure, you're relying a lot on advisory to then advisory. You're relying a lot on advisory to roll up your budget. And advisory turns over. So does capital budget. So does many of volunteer committees turns over. Sometimes you've got folks that want to take on that. Sometimes somebody's operating a different way. In many cases, it turns out that advisory will lean back on town staff to help anyway. So maybe just set it up that way.
If I may, I'm just going to say that one of the things I've observed, and I haven't lived in town very long at all, and this is my second year on advisory, but the point at which advisory starts, or has in the last 2 years that I've been on the committee, is setting a COLA for salaries that are non-negotiated, and then guiding to flat guidance for each of the budgets, each of the departments, budget makers. And the problem with that is that if at some point in some year you got over your skis, in this sort of roll up of budget by budget and item by item, and whoever was on advisory at that time, you're sort of keep building from there. And because you always end up a little bit higher than flat. And so the thing just kind of keeps growing. So it kind of reminds me, Peter, of your mountain of debt. The mountain just kind of keeps growing. And that's sort of one way to sort of approach this. But another way to approach it is to say, kind of big picture, what can the town afford? Then you might take up the bottom up requests, but you'd also be looking at the sort of top down, what's the number you kind of want to end up at? And then prioritize from there. So there's not a lot of big picture looking at the full thing. And it kind of gets back, Corey, to my sort of thought about putting everything on the table and then voting once you see everything on the table, because you can't really prioritize item by item because you don't know what's coming next. So it really would be a very different way of doing things. And you'd have to either deliberately set that up as a way of approaching things or have just a different tradition, I guess. But it does strike me that it's really difficult to kind of manage, especially once you get to a point where you're trying to manage to tight requirements as we are getting to now with Prop 2.5. And, it's very hard to manage kind of bottom up. We don't really have any top down mechanism. And so from that perspective, back to Nora's point about, trying to streamline committees and decision or even recommending bodies, the more you can have sort of a group of people looking at the whole picture top down, I think can help from that perspective. I hope some of that made sense.
Yeah.
No, I think it made sense, Laura. Thank you.
Are we assuming that we're not going to see Dawn?
I'm assuming that at this point.
Okay.
Now it's 8:55 p.m. I think we've touched upon all the agenda items at this point, except for the regional schools, which Dawn is unable to attend due to a number of other meetings. So if I look down at my original sort of checklist for capital projects for 27, I think that the only ones that we have not discussed that are still sort of on the table are a number of them from Public Works. It's really about facilities and infrastructure, and recycling center, and the regional schools at this point. So, for example, the Pine Hill, we actually voted on that one tonight. Police vehicles, we have all information. The fire, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. We've actually voted on all of those already. Those were all free cash.
Speaking of fire, there has been, I heard from Chief Ward that they actually had some grants that came through. So.
Do you know which project that was?
I'll find out, but some grants did come through. I can
Okay.
get you more information. I don't know if we have to re-vote on that or we just leave the vote the way it is and it's just coming in for less.
Yeah, sometimes when we're going to have another meeting, we might as
Okay.
well vote.
Okay.
So I can also
Sorry,
reach out.
but when-
No, that's helpful for me to know. I'll reach out to the chief to get the specifics numbers on it. Public Works truck, we already did vote on that one. The roadway management, we did vote on that one already. IT, we voted on that. That again is another free cash one. And the elder housing, the elevator was pulled, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The farm pond stormwater has now been pulled. And recreation is still on hold at the moment. And the Board of Assessors, we have all the information for that. So that's just pending the vote. So that's my checklist. So our final meeting will hopefully be regional schools, information on that, Public Works, information on those, and any other cleanup. I mean, to the extent recreation is going to continue to push its request, et cetera. So. Anything else from anyone?
Next meeting dates?
Sure, let's talk about that. So it sounds like to the extent we tried to join in, and maybe it's too premature to see. I don't know what's on advisory's agenda for next Wednesday, but at what time does advisory meeting? 7 o'clock. Okay. So to the extent that we can try to work something, it makes sense not to try to meet, I don't think, on Tuesday, especially if the record department is meeting earlier that day, if it's taking votes on things.
Mm-hmm.
The 18th is school vacation week, which I don't know if people are traveling that week or if anyone celebrates Ramadan, but it's I am not traveling on the 18th.
There'll be a Wednesday.
Oh, sorry. I'm not traveling on the 17th either. Laura, are you traveling? I know you might try to take advantage of that week.
I am not traveling that week. I have a an all-day client meeting that day in Boston, but I will be here.
Okay,
On the 17th.
17th, Tuesday or Wednesday?
so let me
On the
let me
17th.
just
Tuesday.
make sure Sean is also not traveling that week, nor Dawn traveling that week, to make sure that they're available. And if so, shall we try the 17th?
Sure.
If not, would the 24th be an acceptable backup for people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Why don't we try doing that, and then we'll try to get the meeting posted as soon as possible.
The 17th? For the 17th?
Let's shoot for the 17th, and if we can't, we'll fall back.
And then
to
can we
the-
do a
If we're-
joint? Oh, go ahead.
If we're doing the joint thing on the 11th, we have to post it if we're,
Correct.
yeah.
So can you talk to the advisory chair, I suppose, to see if that makes sense? Oh, one other just general business to note. I did get an email from the chair of Dover's equivalent capital budget committee. And he said he wanted to meet. I assume this might have to do with the regional school proposal or just, generally, comparing notes on things and how the towns are operating and debt loads and all that sort of stuff. So I'll respond to him and try to have that meeting at least before our next meeting, subset meeting.
If I'm posting for Wednesday, the 11th for a joint meeting, the agenda is just joint meeting or
Yeah, I think it would be about the presentation about long-term capital planning or long-term fiscal planning, perhaps. I do think that we need to make sure that that works for the staff, to the whomever is going to be the presenter, whomever is going to be building whatever sort of intel and presentation. I don't want to layer on another burden and a deadline. Like, does it need to be on the 11th, or could it be at the next advisory meeting after that? So, I don't know how much effort and heavy a lift it would be, but I wouldn't want to say, give me something next week, if it's not reasonable.
Jeremy,
yeah.
I'll send you an email.
Is the next,
He seemed, is he still on?
No.
no,
Oh, he seemed a little stressed, so I didn't want
No,
to,
there's a lot. Last
Yeah.
night went late, tonight, tomorrow night,
yeah.
yep.
So there's no,
Thursday night,
There's
There's
no
no need to
magic that
press
it has
it.
to be next
Right.
next Wednesday.
I mean,
No,
we can table, because we're kind of crunching too with, it was February, we had March and,
we're behind
It's getting
schedule,
tight,
actually.
yeah.
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 No, I mean, when it comes down to how much more meetings in theory, we could knock out the remainder of this list at our next meeting if
Okay.
we get all the information from the various.
I prefer, just to let you know, not to have it on the 24th,
Okay,
because I'm gonna be at I can log in remotely, it's fine. So I'm gonna be traveling for an RPAC thing.
well,
West.
if we can get the presenters and then we have to leak into March a little bit, that's less than ideal, but we'll do that.
Okay.
Or we can do it
I can
on,
do it on Zoom. I'll be there on
we
Zoom.
can also do it not on a Tuesday.
Okay. Figure it out.
And I have to spend all morning of the 11th with an attorney, so I may be shaking.
Oh, no. Well, we'll figure it out.
Hopefully it's only for good things. Attorneys are wonderful people too.
Well, the person I usually deal with is retiring and I'm being introduced to the new person.
Well, hopefully the new person is.
So can I ask you a question about, since we had it on the agenda, have you spoken with Recreation about their capital request at length?
I mean, I'm not sure what at length.
Okay.
I spoke with them for combined over an hour.
Uh-huh.
Why? Is that,
No, I just.
are you questioning whether or not I should be? I mean, I'm not breaking any, Halloween laws.
I suggest you, well, that's another reason why I always wanted 5 on this committee. But I'll be on the I'll be on the recreation. I've been on the recreation meetings.
Mhm.
And you do remember, like, I've just done some research, I don't mind sharing this, but, yeah, some $135,000 increase was in their operating budget. And they were, advisory had, I think, two, this is in May of, or, 2022 town meeting, and I believe two opposed, one was not there, and the rest did approve it, but that's what they asked for, it's what Rec asked for. And it was supposed to be for, contract services for the fields in Sherborn. So that's $540,000, and it's, they're just over the last 4 years. But I don't know if that's happened.
I wonder,
Well, I think it's all written down what they spent the money on, so I'd look at that.
it's a question of whether they spent it on something else or whether it's just been rolled over into free cash.
Look, I haven't looked, but I would suspect that it was
I think that's something that,
on field.
they also have only 3 people on their committee, so.
Well, and they've had two for a while. Don't they?
No, they had 3 in the.
Well, I mean, they had two, there's one left.
Laura, if you want to move to adjourn the meeting, I think you might have.
Yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
I don't think I'm
I
allowed
could go
to.
on all night long.
Okay, well, do I hear it from somebody else?
I'll move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's 9:06 p.m. This meeting has adjourned of the Capital Budget Committee on February 3rd, 2026. Thank you all for bearing with us. Jeannie, thank you for the spreadsheet presentation. We really do appreciate that. And,
All right.
thank you for all your time. We do
Go to
appreciate
bed,
it.
everybody. Drive
Yes.
It's
carefully.
early.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Night.
I-
Good night, Margot.